What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. On today's segment, we are going to discuss the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football. Now, Kyle, you being the Tampa Bay supporter / Tom Brady lover, we got to talk about your boys, man. Do you think that they can bounce back against this tough Ravens opponent this Thursday?
Kev, I'm very iffy with this one. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Bucs after they had probably one of the most embarrassing losses that we've seen this entire season. The fact that they lost to the Panthers by 3 possessions and only scoring 3 points in the process. It's one of the most abysmal, disgraceful performances I've seen from the Bucs, not only this entire season, but pretty much since Tom Brady has arrived to the Bucs since 2020. So they definitely need a bounce back game, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen based on getting 3 days of rest. And let's face it, Kev, the Bucs are dealing with a bunch of injuries here. I mean, just to kind of look at the injury report here, some of these guys that were injured from Sunday's game against the Panthers, they were limited on Tuesday, and we'll see what happens as their situation improves throughout the week, whether or not they could play on Saturday. But Shaq Mason was limited, Mike Evans was limited, Julio Jones was limited, but they're missing some key players that are not practicing. Carlton Davis is one of them. Antoine Winfield Jr. is another one. Sean Murphy Bunting is another one. Like, their defense is really struggling with injuries based off of what happened in that Panthers game this past weekend. And when you look at the offense is just as, I would say, suspect, because like I said, you only scored 3 points against the Panthers. That tells me something, that this offense is just in a complete and utter rut. And I think that there could be a chance that they could get some points against the Ravens, because the Ravens don't necessarily have the best defense to work with. But I need to see it first. The Bucs got to show me something to where I can have faith in them. And at this point, I really don't have anything. Had they won the Panthers game, maybe there'd be a little bit momentum to build off of that. But with the way that they looked, and the fact that they really had no sense of urgency in that game until basically late in the third quarter, late in the third, early in the fourth, it just shows me that this team just can't get out of their own way. And until they finally find some pathway forward, I can't pick them. So in this instance, I'm going with the Ravens on this one. I understand the Ravens have had their own issues the last couple of weeks. Lamar Jackson has not necessarily been at what he was the first 3-4 weeks of the season. He was balling out the first month of the season, but he's definitely taken a step back, and his overall effectiveness has dropped. And the Ravens as a whole have kind of taken a step back. And the Ravens were a decent team early on, but the Bengals have kind of caught up to them since probably 2-3 weeks ago, because the Bengals are on a good little stretch. So when I look at the Ravens and I look at the Bucs, they definitely need a kickstart here, and both teams are really kind of looking for a win here just to get back into the win column. But overall, when I look at this game, I think it's going to be relatively low scoring, just because I think both defenses are going to play somewhat well, just because the Bucs, their defense has been the only reason why Tampa's been in these games. Some of them they've lost, yes, but it hasn't been because of the defense. It's just the offense can't produce. And then when I look at the Ravens, the Ravens, I think, are going to be able to slow down Tom and that Bucs offense, just because the Bucs can't do anything. Their offensive line is very weak. They can't run the ball effectively. Tom's getting pressured on every single play. It's just kind of a recipe of disaster for the Bucs. And I do think that the Ravens can follow up what the Panthers did last week and really give Tampa a tough time here. But, just to kind of put a score on the game, I think the Ravens win this one by the score of, I'm going to say 24-14. I think the Ravens, they could win this game by 2 possessions, just because I have no faith in the Bucs offense right now. And until the Bucs show me something, I can't pick them. So I'm going with the Ravens in this one, and that's just how I see it.
Yeah, I'm going with Baltimore too. I mean, we discussed right before the episode, Tampa's the last team in the NFL in terms of yards per carry. They're averaging 3 yards per carry on the ground. When you can't run the ball, when you can't protect the quarterback, especially when your quarterback is at 45 years old, it's not a good formula for successful football. And now let's get into the Ravens. So obviously Lamar Jackson hasn't necessarily played the greatest of football the last month or so. And then you go and you look at what they have on the ground. J.K. Dobbins has now been shut down. He's on IR. They have to go rotate through, if I'm not mistaken, Kenyon Drake, Mike Davis, Gus Edwards, and a couple of other hand-me-down running backs. So their running game looks a little inconsistent. But with all of the injuries to the secondary of Tampa, if those corners and safeties end up not playing, I would say that that's going to be pretty favorable for Lamar Jackson to get outside the tackle and hopefully maybe even get some yards on the ground. Mark Andrews is obviously one of the more unguardable tight ends in my personal opinion, and if that secondary isn't healthy, I see him having a big day. But I agree with Kyle completely. I'm going to agree and say that they probably win within 2 scores, maybe even 27-17, something of that magnitude, 27-14. I can't predict a Buccaneers win right now with the way that they've been playing so inconsistently. Short days rest, again, like Kyle already alluded to. And at the end of the day, man, we're looking at a younger team versus a pretty old, battered, and bruised Bucs team. And I truly and honestly, I don't really have much faith in them. So I mean, yeah, I'll take the Ravens, not in a good way. I think they're both pretty bad football teams as of right this very second. They both have their own issues, but I'll take the younger quarterback, and I will take the quarterback that is mobile that can at least escape pressure. Whereas Tom just got to throw that away and dump it down to Leonard Fournette and whoever else is running out of the backfield, or just throw it away because he's got absolutely no time to throw. And again, as I just alluded to a few minutes ago, at 45 years old, you don't have protection, and you're not the most mobile individual. It's not a good formula. So I'll take the Ravens, and I don't think it's going to be that close.